Dr. Lipton is speaking from Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he says those who have a poor mindset, no matter how much they try to get rich, they remain poor. And those who have a wealth mindset, wealth seems to come to them easily and effortlessly. He says, matter of fact, even the person that may not be all that smart, because within their DNA, there's a wealth mindset, that person begins to prosper. Even with the person that has all the book sets and the knowledge, no matter how hard he or she tries, they can try to get wealthy and they can't. He said because it's ingrained in their DNA.
Famous book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Sure.
And basically said you come from a poor family and you could struggle your whole life and try to get rich, but you're not going to make it. And if you come from a rich family, you could be stupid your whole life and make it. Not because it was thinking, but it was unconscious behavior that was downloaded from rich families into kids, which is unconscious. So they're making the right moves unconsciously.
This actually has a biblical precedence, and that is, it says that the sins of the father will be passed down to the children, to the third and the fourth generation. But I understand this. Also, the blessings of the parents will be passed down to the children, third and fourth generation. Now, how is it passed down?
If they engage their conscious mind, then they look stupid, but it's unconscious. And that's the same thing with poor people. Poor people have beliefs from the family, oh, you can't make it, life's a struggle, things are hard, who do you think you are? And if that's the program you get, then 95% of the day you will sabotage yourself. And that's why poor people stay poor and rich people stay rich, because the program.
Besides being ingrained in the DNA, it's also communicated. What you find with Jewish families is that they talk about wealth and wealth mindset as a child is coming up as an infant until that child becomes, into an adulthood. They're learning about wealth principles. They're learning about how money flows. And in other communities, that's not being taught. So, of course, depending upon what's being taught, even if that child is running amok, when he or she settles down, all of a sudden, abundance seems to flow to that child easily and effortlessly because that's the mindset.
And if you come from a rich family, you could be stupid your whole life and make it.
We can listen to this and we can think that it's fixed and that we can't change it. And nothing can be further from the truth. Many of the wealthiest families in the world start off poor. When you look at the Rothschilds, when you look at the Rockefellers, when you look at the Kennedys, Joseph Kennedy sold alcohol. Today, we would deem him a hero because of, what his family has done. If we look at the drug dealer today, we would not say that that was something that was glamorized, but alcohol during the time of prohibition was the equivalent of our drug dealers today. And yet we have families that have made multiple millions, if not billions of dollars in these trades. Now, what I'm not doing is justifying the trade or the habit, but what I'm trying to tell you is that once that mindset changes and you believe that you can attract wealth into your life, no matter what the industry is that you're involved in, you're going to begin to reproduce likewise, or you're going to reproduce after your mindset or after your kind. It says that everything reproduces after its kind. We're told also that to him who has in consciousness, more shall be given. But to him who has not, even that which she has will be taken away from him. Now, when we think about this, it just doesn't seem fair. But this is not based off of fairness, but law. And once we begin to understand law and we begin to occupy in law, then we can begin to experience change. But Dr. Lipton says, listen, you can look at an individual and you can see their lifestyle, and they may be doing all the right things and they don't prosper. Or you can look at another individual and they may be doing seemingly all the wrong things and yet they prosper. And he says, much of this is ingrained in the DNA.
If they engage their conscious mind, then they look stupid, but it's unconscious. And that's the same thing with poor people. Poor people have beliefs from the family, oh, you can't make it, life's a struggle, things are hard, who do you think you are? And if that's the program you get, then 95% of the day you will sabotage yourself.
But the good news is Dr. Lipton also gives us the cure for the generational curse.
There are only 3 ways that you can rewrite subconscious mind.
I look at our communities and I look at something as simple as discipline. When I grew up, when we were disciplined, what they deemed as discipline back then would be considered child abuse today. And I started reflecting where they learned it from. And I started going back and I realized that my parents were doing what their parents did, and their parents was doing what their parents did. And then what we discovered is that their parents was actually doing what they discovered that the master was doing slavery. What we did was took slavery principles and began to raise our children with these same discipline. For example, when we would be disciplined, it would be a belt. Sometimes it would be a switch. And what they would do with that switch was they would braid the switch. What we discovered was discipline was very crude. Again, my parents didn't know why their parents did it or why their parents did it. But like I said, if you go back far enough, you discover that the discipline was slavery based discipline. Many adults still use that form of discipline on their children. What about finances? Many of us have come from a background of barely enough. And again, if you go back far enough, what you see is that the cycle has not been broken from that slavery mentality carried into the future. So even with things like savings, investing, and so forth, we do not have those tools because, of course, we live from paycheck to paycheck, not planning, as it were, for the future. When we begin to change our mindset, then we begin to change our world.
You come from a poor family and you could struggle your whole life and try to get rich, but you're not going to make it. And if you come from a rich family, you could be stupid your whole life and make it. Not because it was thinking, but it was unconscious behavior that was downloaded from rich families into kids, which is unconscious. So they're making the right moves unconsciously. If they engage their conscious mind, then they look stupid, but it's unconscious. And that's the same thing with poor people. Poor people have beliefs from the family, oh, you can't make it, life's a struggle, things are hard, who do you think you are? And if that's the program you get, then 95% of the day you will sabotage yourself.
You may say, well, coach, how do I begin to change my mindset? Through education. There's so much information out there today that we can break the so-called generational curse. You can start with this generation beginning to reprogram your own mind using the tools that Dr. Lipton talks about, but also other tools that are available to us. And all these tools, the goal of these tools is basically to transform one's mind or to transform one's thinking.
There are only 3 ways that you can rewrite subconscious mind.